Hello, and welcome to Lead, Learn, Connect, where we explore the worlds of training and coaching. I'm your host, Alan Krieger. On this show, we talk about not just the how of helping others grow, but the behind-the-scenes work of building a successful business, overcoming challenges, and staying connected to what's really important. My guest today is Jo-Aynne von Born, a leadership coach and trainer from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Jo-Aynne is the founder of Ready, Set, More. Whether you're a new trainer, a seasoned facilitator, or just curious about what it takes to thrive in this world, this episode is for you. Welcome, Jo-Aynne.
It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking with you again. So what are some of the biggest challenges you think leaders face in terms of communication? And when you do leadership training, how do you address that?
So I think one of the biggest challenges is with clarity. Just with people in general, we think we're communicating clearly, and most likely we're not. So I think a lot of times with leaders, they come to me and they say, I don't understand. I've directed the team, I've told them, I've shown them, we've talked about it, but it seems like it's falling on deaf ears. And so really when we drill down, what we find is that they really weren't as clear as they thought. A lot of times we assume that people understand what we mean, and most likely other people, when we say something, they're thinking something completely different. So I think clarity, the illusion that communication is actually taking place, is the biggest challenge, because from communication, as a leader comes everything else. Relationships are built on communication. Trust is built on communication. Loyalty is built on communication. So I'd say lack of clarity, biggest challenge.
Okay, and thinking that we are being clear and not checking it out, not getting feedback, not testing it somehow to make sure that we're getting that people are hearing what we meant to say.
Exactly. And so I think it's really important that people are constantly checking in. Did you understand what I meant? How would you, please let me know what you heard? Whatever the words are that work for you, it's important to always be checking in and asking for clarification. And you probably will find that when people respond back, you will say, well, yes, but not really. What I was really going for was X. And so that's not a waste of time, because in that back and forth, more clarity comes, not only for the person you're communicating with, but for you as well. For instance, when people in coaching, especially when we're having a coaching conversation, and people respond back to me, and then I hear the way they heard what I said, it helps me get more clear next time I speak. So I think the clarity goes both ways, and that's great for both people in the communication.
Okay, yeah. One of the things that I look at with clarity and communication is communication styles, and as you know, we've developed this assessment, and you had an interesting score. There's four
Yeah.
styles. There's tell, which is very direct. There's engage, which is somebody who's a good communicator. A for analyze, and then M is for mediate, people who are kind of friendly and supportive. And you scored high in both engage and analyze, which are kind of opposite. So talk a little bit about how that shows up in your work, and if you've seen that maybe play into some of the miscommunication that people are speaking from one style and not another.
Yes, so I think at heart, I really am an analyzer. I'm very reflective. I think a lot about things. I think that's my comfort zone. But I realize that analyzing and thinking of a lot of great ideas and understanding big problems are of no use unless I'm engaging with other people. That's where everything is tested and practiced. So I think over the years, I just evolved in my career and just as a person, from being more quiet and reflective to actually engaging with people. And so it's been a really positive feedback loop, because the more I engage people, the more I learn, and then I go back and then I'm able to crystallize my ideas or refine them. So it definitely is opposite, and I find I am that way. I think I mentioned to you before, whenever I do a big training or a seminar, or I go to a conference and I'm on talking, facilitating, and all of that, I love it. But then at the end of the day, I need my quiet time. So I need to retreat. And, so I don't think I'm an extrovert or an introvert. I go, I flip flop from one to the other. Probably a learned pattern, just because, as I said, nothing gets done in a vacuum. You need to interact with people. I mean, any success happens with other people. So I think it's something I definitely learned. And how does that work with some of the other styles? Well, I think people that are engagers, it's easy. People that are analyzers, it's easy for me. I think we talked about this before, the people who are tells. And for me, most of the people that I've worked for that are tells, those are usually the CEOs or the senior leaders. They want it brief and direct. So for me, the way I look at it is just give them the bullet points. They don't really care why or the reasoning. They just want to know boom, 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 which is good when you're consulting. But I think when you're coaching and trying to help somebody improve, it isn't just do these 3 bullet points and you're done. They have to be coached into being a little bit more reflective. So there's a lot of ways to do that. But I think for me, when I'm working with a person who has this tell communication style, is that we just keep talking. And then I find that moment when I either ask them a question or I point out a contradiction in their thinking that makes them go silent. Because the tell communication style is usually fast, fast, fast. They have the answers. And the moment that they're stumped, even for a few seconds, is actually a great opening for learning. So when I work with tell communication styles, I'm usually just being very attentive and listening and waiting for that moment when they're stumped. And then I know now we're off to something. Now we're off to the races.
Okay, yeah, because the tell style is not an introspective style, and to
No,
get them to stop and reflect is a
right.
challenge. And in terms of clarity, what you said earlier, they speak so quick and short, and they know exactly what they mean, and nobody else does. So, helping them
Exactly.
understand that.
And I think a great way to work with those type of people is not to force them to slow down, because it's not going to make sense to them. It's not their style. So I just let them go, go, go. But what's interesting, Alan, is the more that they talk, 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 I can find the contradictions in what they're saying. So then all I need to say is, well, a few minutes ago you said this, and now you're saying that. Help me understand how those two work together. And then boom.
Okay, the
Then the
insight.
slowing down happens automatically.
Okay,
So,
great. So, one of the big issues in the workplace today is burnout,
yeah,
and so leaders struggle with. They have usually a lot of work to do, and they want to get their team high production, and they push, and then people get burned out, and so leaders push harder because work isn't getting done, and obviously it's a self-defeating cycle. So, what would you advise a leader who's dealing with burnout and a big workload and no time for stopping?
so I think the most important thing, as with anything, is you have to acknowledge the problem. So just trying to override burnout and say, well, we just have to move forward doesn't help. As with anything, the problem has to be acknowledged. So if your team is overworked and burnt out, you just have to say what is, right? Even if you don't want to admit it. And I think what that does is it sort of humanizes everything. So you can be a very direct leader. Let's say you're a telecommunication style person and you just want to push, 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 push. And you need to be able to think about your team as just human beings like you are, because chances are, look, we all get stressed out and burnt out. So there isn't one leader I know that hasn't felt that. So just to kind of communicate with your team, okay, I see what's happening. I recognize it. It's happened to me before too. So just acknowledging it helps your team a lot. As with anything, when you're communicating, if you help people be seen and valued and heard, right? Okay, I see that you're burnt out. I see that it's too much. That I think is 50% of the problem solved. But then after that, I try to help leaders shift from performance management to what I call energy management. And so what I mean is, yes, we all know the deadlines that have to be met and the performance standards that have to be met. Fine. Those are set in stone metrics, let's say. But how you help a person get there is very different. So I like to call it energy management, which means when I'm doing something that either I love to do or that I'm really good at, it gives me a lot of energy. So most people will recognize this as when you're doing something that you're really into or you're really good at, hours can go by and you're not even tired because it's easy for you. So if you can help the people on your team recognize what it is that they do well, it can be anything, right? Or what quality they have. Maybe it's a characteristic. Somebody's very curious, just naturally curious. Well, you can hone in on that curiosity and say, hey, you're the curious one in the group. Can you come up with 5 different questions or maybe 5 different scenarios? Whatever. You give them a task that uses that strength or that quality that they naturally have. So what's going to happen? They're going to be so energized that the burnout is going to go away. Burnout comes from pushing in areas that you're not sure about, that you have doubt about within yourself. But if you can offset that with tasks and activities that speak to your strength or what you're really interested in, your energy level soars. And so once you do that, then the tasks that are more difficult, that burn you out, that tire you out, can be done. You just have a surplus of energy now. So it's kind of not the old fashioned way, but when people say, lean on your strengths, I think that's the benefit of leaning on your strengths. It energizes you for the things that maybe you're not so strong at, but now you're going to have a whole lot of extra energy to tackle them. So that's what I mean about energy management versus performance management.
No, I like that. And I think one of the challenges that people are under some pressure to treat everybody equally, which means exactly the same way. But as you point out, people have different strengths. And if you can help them use their strengths more in their day-to-day work, and maybe even switch tasks around so that people are
Sure.
all working on the ones it is rewarding. So yeah. Treating people the same is not good. Treating people fairly, but customized
Right.
is
Fairly doesn't mean the same. Fairly
right.
is one thing, but customizing is a different thing. And another little tip that I think is very helpful when you're working with the team is whatever their strengths are or the qualities that they have that they're naturally are easy for them. A great suggestion is use those strengths or do those tasks first during the day. So if you're the curious one in the group, you may have many projects you need to work on, but start your workday using curiosity in whatever way you can. Maybe it's a half an hour of reflection. How can I make the rest of the day a little easier? How can I find a new solution? If you get that motor running, then the rest of your day, you're going to have so much energy to tackle everything else. So it's a strategic thing to do, but it really works. I know there is some wisdom out there that says start with the hard thing first, and that can work.
Yeah.
But another way is start with what you're already good at and energizes you, because that will carry you with energy through the day.
Yeah, I like that. I try to start with the easy thing first. One easy thing just to get the motor running and
Get
then
it
get into
going,
the hard
right?
thing. But I
Yeah,
like that. Start with my strengths, the things that I enjoy, things that give me energy, and then at the end of the day, get the
exactly.
work done you got to get done. I like that.
Right,
That's a
right.
great approach. So what else, if, as you talk about your approach to leadership, what else have we haven't talked about yet that you want to kind of highlight as an important
Well, I think
element.
one of the things that I usually like to drive home right away is that, we're so used to leadership being a position. I'm the VP of something. I'm running this team. And that's true. There are formal leadership positions, but I think everybody should not overlook the concept that leadership is a quality of being. So you don't need to be in a formal position. I think everybody should and can develop leadership as a quality. So whether you may have not be a leader, you might just be somebody on a team, but developing that leadership quality is going to help you in every area, not only of your career, but your life, because you learn to not only take charge of yourself. So the first person we need to lead is ourselves, right? You can't be a good leader of other people unless you're leading your own life or career in a positive way. So leadership is something that everybody needs to learn, in my opinion. And the more you are good at leading your own career, leading your own life, you're going to understand, first of all the issues and obstacles that come up in leadership. So you're going to be better able to lead other people. But I think looking at leadership as a quality and a characteristic that every person can and should have is the fundamental place I start with when I'm training leaders or, developing leaders, is to not look at it as a position. It's a characteristic or just a way of being in the world. And
Okay,
so
so to
then,
go ahead.
yeah, no, then leadership becomes foundational. It's not, well, okay, when I go to work today, I'm stepping into my leadership role. The reason why that I believe doesn't work in the long run is because the minute pressure comes, the leadership is not who you are. It's just a role you're playing. And when things get really tough and chaotic, who you really are is going to come out.
No.
So if who you really are is a leader at heart, you've just learned that to the leadership quality in all areas of your life, then no matter how tough things get or how bad the situation is, what's going to come out under pressure is the leader. So
Oh, I like
that's,
that. Yeah.
yeah, that's how I like
Yeah,
to frame it.
yeah. Under pressure, people often revert to their worst self.
Right.
But
So
if leadership is their go-to, then they would
ex-
go to that. I like that. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And of course, Alan, that works not only at work, it works as a parent. It works if you're in the community. I mean, leadership is just sorely needed in all areas of our society, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. So you've talked about coaching, I think, maybe more than training. When we look at training, what would you say are kind of the key strategies you use to engage an audience to help get this message across? They may want, just give me the information I need, and you're asking them to do kind of personal change as you do that. How do you build that into your training?
So all my trainings, I always have the information that they need and want, but I never just present it as information because I don't think you retain anything. I think by doing a lot of exercises and putting you in practical situations, I do a lot of role play in my trainings. So I might give them some information on communication and then I'll say, okay, two people come up and I'll just give them a scenario. Here's the conversation. Here's what you want to accomplish. And I just let them go at it. And then a group effort. So what could they have said? What should they have said? So on and so forth. At first, people are a little shy, but after one or two times, everybody loves it because you get it in not only in your mind, but you get it in your body. Once either you're doing it or you're watching somebody else, and then you're helping them in real time improve. So a lot of my trainings look frankly like not a classroom. It looks like maybe an acting school.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, pop up on our feet. We're going to do this. We're going to have these different scenarios. And I think for me, it's the way I like to learn. It's the way I like to teach. And then because I think once something you have an experience, you can never forget it. Or if you watch an experience, two people, you can never forget it. But if I tell you, here's the 3 points of communication, you're going to forget it the minute you walk out the door. So,
Yeah. People learn best by doing. I would agree with that.
so
And so you're successful getting stage fright. I mean, I find a lot of people are like, I don't want to do this. I didn't come here to act. I'm not an actor. So do you get any kind of real active resistance, or are you able to pretty much facilitate it?
usually some shy people, but I run my trainings. I'm very warm. I'm very human. I can be self-deprecating. So I think I have a unique way of putting everyone at ease within the first 5 minutes. So there'll always be a few shy ones who won't get up, but they'll be the ones in the audience saying, oh, you know what? You could have said this, you could have said that. So at least if I get that participation, that's good enough. But
Okay.
I think that getting over that fear of participating is really important to me. And I do that in the first 10 minutes of my training.
Yep.
Once I get participation, I know I'm going to have learning. So,
Okay. Yeah. I somebody else I was talking to talked about icebreakers,
mhm,
and I always thought icebreakers just kind of warm up the group. And he said he uses them to create a safe space,
mhm.
intentionally
Sure.
designed to do that. Exactly what you're saying. People to get comfortable speaking up, and that it kind of added another level to icebreakers for me of things to think about when
Sure.
designing them.
Right. It's more than an introduction. An icebreaker I like to use is, say your name and then take the first letter of your name and give me an adjective that describes who you are.
Uh-huh.
So, I'm Jo-Aynne. I usually say joyful, but people come up with all kinds of crazy, funny, hysterical adjectives. And actually, it gets everybody in the room to know that person a little differently than maybe you would have when you looked at them. You may have categorized them as something.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Nice.
if someone's name is Lucy and she says she's loony, you're going to look at her, in a much different light, and it's going to be more relaxing. Everyone gets humanized. And I think that's really important. When we all see each other as human beings, it's a totally different situation.
Okay, great. Yeah, we're just about out of time, but one thing I wanted to get to, I know you've developed a gratitude challenge, which I've signed up for, and I really see some value in gratitude. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. It's called the 7-day gratitude experiment. And it's just 7 days. You get 7 brief emails with a change in focus from maybe being overwhelmed to being grateful. It's all backed by research. Every prompt has a little research statistic about gratitude. And the point of this is that, gratitude is something that most people overlook, or they think it's silly, or how's that going to help me in my work? But it refocuses you on what's working instead of what isn't working. And I think at the end of 7 days, most people are amazed at how much of their focus every day, even though they want to succeed, is on what's not working, what's wrong, the obstacles, so on and so forth. I'm not saying we shouldn't be um, keep our eyes open as to what isn't working. But I would say let's spend an equal amount of time, another 50%, on what is working. And I think that helps you release and relax a lot of the stress and maybe clears your mind so that you're able to see more solutions and work on more problems. It's a mental upgrade, in my opinion. So I'd be happy to give you the link. You can maybe put it in the show notes. It's free. It's 7 days. It's very simple. And you can just see if it makes a difference. If in 7 days it doesn't make a difference, okay, no loss. But it could really radically change your outlook. So I'd be happy to offer that link in the show notes.
Yeah, thanks, Jo-Aynne. I'll give just a little testimonial. I did it one day, and it changed my feeling for that day, to really
Great.
have that. So I'm on to day 2, and we'll see how that goes. But
Great, Alan. Great.
thanks, Jo-Aynne. It's been great having you on the show. That's it for today's episode of Lead, Learn, Connect. A huge thank you to Jo-Aynne von Born for sharing some great insights into her approach to training and coaching. If you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe, share it with a colleague, and leave a review. You can find out more about Jo-Aynne's work and the link to the 7-day gratitude experiment in the show notes. And if you're ready to strengthen the way you teach or coach communication, click on the link in the show notes to our website to learn more about the T.E.A.M model of communication. And be sure to follow us on LinkedIn or other social media. Until next time, keep leading with intention, keep learning, and keep connecting. Thanks for listening.